Hello, Year 1 students. Welcome back to remote learning for TTC through radio lessons. My name is Teacher Emma. I am going to be taking you through today's lesson. As you are aware, and due to COVID-19, the government of Rwanda has suspended activities that essentially bring many people together and all unnecessary movements to prevent transmission of COVID-19. Schools have also been affected. To support continued learning, Rwanda Education Board is in partnership with UNICEF and other partners to support remote learning for all levels of education, including TTC. In this lesson, we shall be learning about pedagogical approaches in accordance with Unit 3 from the Year 1 Foundations of Education syllabus. Today, we will specifically learn about difference between teacher-centered approach and learner-centered approach. We will end by understanding why the competence-based curriculum is designed in a learner-centered way. You will draw on the understanding as we observe and read lessons in teaching practice. Ensure you are in a free environment and make sure you have your notebook and the pen. To help you start thinking about this topic, I want you to listen to the following scenarios and be ready to reflect upon what you've heard. Scenario 1. Louise is a P6 teacher of social studies. She is teaching about natural disasters. She takes the students to the smart classroom and provides each student with a laptop. She directs the class to a scientific website that has information about different natural disasters. The students are given instructions to look up information related to 3 natural disasters of their choice. They are given time to watch videos and read the information on the website. Louise instructs students to write down the key facts that they learn and any question that they wonder about. As students work, Louise moves around the classrooms to make sure that students are on task and to help those who might be stuck. In the next lesson, the students will be given a chance, are we together, my friends, to share their findings and questions. That was scenario 1. Scenario 2. Musa is a P6 teacher of social studies. For his lesson on natural disasters, he has students sit quietly in their desks, which are arranged in rows. Musa explains different types of natural disasters by talking and then writes notes on the blackboard which students copy down in their notebooks. Occasionally, Musa asks a question like, "Do you understand?" And the students say, "Yes." But there is no further interaction or discussion. At the end of the lesson, he tells students to revise their notes because they will have a quiz next time. Now, my friends, let us reflect on the 2 scenarios. I'm going to read questions and then give you time to think and write down your ideas. What do you observe as the main difference between the 2 teachers? Do you remember? Teacher Ruiz and Teacher Musa. What makes Teacher Ruiz and Teacher Musa different? In whose classrooms do you think students learn more and why? Which teacher would you like to be when you have your own classroom? Why? Let me repeat these questions as you write them down. What do you observe as the main difference between the two scenarios? What makes Teacher Louise and Teacher Musa different? In whose classroom do you think students learn more? And why? Which teacher would you like to be when you have your own classroom? And why? Did you come up with some ideas? Well done. Let me share some of my reflections. But before I share my reflections, my good students, I hope you noted down the 3 questions that I posed. And I hope you are able to come up with some ideas. Now, my friends, in the interest of time, allow me to share my ideas and you will get to see whether there is a connection between what you were able to come up with. In the first scenario, we see that Teacher Louise prepares materials for students to use in advance. Every student is busy and is required to think for him or herself and be self-directed in the activity. Louise guides students to reliable places to find information and is there to support them. But that isn't the only source of information. In other words, she isn't the only source of information. In the second scenario, we see Teacher Musa comes to class only with a chalk and a notebook. He is the sole source of information and asks students to listen to him, soak up everything he says. The content might not make sense to students since he explains in a theoretical way without teaching learning aids. The key difference between Louise and Musa is the way they engage learners. Louise makes students responsible for their learning and gives them support. Musa makes himself responsible for delivering the content while students are passive. Because the students in Louise's class are using more of their brains and making personal connections to the content, they will learn more. I would like to be a teacher like Louise. Wouldn't you? My dear friends, are we together? Very good. Now, as usual, I have a song for you. I hope you still remember some of the songs we've been learning. And this is about friends. And you could have ever heard about it, so listen carefully because we shall sing it together. And it says, make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other is gold. I'm repeating. Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other is gold. Now, stand up everyone. Let us go together. Children loves making friends. And friends makes a world a better place for us to be in. Always, we must support students to build good relationships at school. Okay, so we sing together. Now, normally, in a normal situation, not in this corona time, when we teach this song to students, we ask them to hold their hands together in pairs or sometimes in triads. So, and then they swing their arms as we sing. Can we go together now? Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other is gold. Perfect. You are wonderful students. Now, my friends, sit down again. Now that we know a little bit about how different teaching approaches can be, let us focus on learning the characteristics of teacher-centered and a learner-centered approach. Let us start with teacher-centered approach. From what we've discussed so far, what do you think a teacher-centered approach looks like? Whose classroom in the example was teacher-centered? Can you write down your idea? You have a second to do that. Very good. That's right. Musa used a teacher-centered approach. I'm going to read a list of different characteristics of a teacher-centered approach. Try to note keywords that I say in your notebooks in a teacher-centered approach. Are you ready? Great. The teacher is more active than the students. If you want to write down these ideas, you feel welcome. The pace is determined by the teacher. Students mostly listen, observe, and make notes. Few instructional resources are used. The teacher expects all students to learn at the same pace and the same way. Remember, we are looking at the characteristics of a teacher-centered approach. Students are not given time to express themselves. They are only asked some direct questions. My dear friends, have you been in such a classroom with such a teacher? Now, let us look at a learner-centered approach. In our scenarios, from the warm-up, we used a learner-centered approach. In the scenarios that I gave you, which teacher do you think used a learner-centered approach? Great! Teacher Louise. I'm going to read a list of different characteristics of a learner-centered approach. Try to note down keywords that I say in your notebook on the characteristics of a learner-centered approach. Are you ready? Perfect. The students are more active than the teacher. The pace is determined by the needs and interests of students. In the first characteristics, the keyword that we saw there, students are more active. I want you to note down that. And in the second one, we say that the pace is determined by the needs and the interests. I want you to take note of that. The needs and the interests of who? Not the teacher, but the learner. Good. Students, another one, students are given a chance to make choices and contribute to shaping their learning. Wow, I love that. Students are given the opportunity to make choices in the learning process. Another one, teachers create an atmosphere or an environment that is open and flexible, where students question and ideas are welcome. Would you want to be in such a classroom? Of course, yes. I would love to be in one. Teachers provide students with a range of instructional resources and materials to use while learning. Have you got that? Teachers provide students with a variety or a range of instructional resources and materials to use while doing what? Learning. The teacher acts as a guide or facilitator to students as they work, making it possible to address individual needs of students. Are encouraged to work together and share with their peers what they are learning. Have you had a situation where you are able to share your ideas but also learn from your friends? Good. Is the difference between the two approaches becoming clear a little bit? Wonderful. Now, my friends, let us do an activity using what you have learned. I am going to be reading different statements, and I want you to decide if you think the statement describes a teacher-centered approach or a learner-centered approach. Get your pen and your notebook. Are you ready now? Good. Let's begin. Number 1. It requires less time for preparation. I'm repeating. It requires less time for preparation. In front of such a statement, you will be writing learner-centered or teacher-centered. What do you think it is? Okay. So number 1, that is teacher-centered approach, because few materials besides teacher's notes are prepared in advance. Number 2, it costs less money. It costs less money. So I want you to write down, is that teacher-centered approach or or learner-centered? Good. I'm going to read through these statements and I want you to write them down. Then we'll go back and see what you have written. Number 3, there is room for students to explore individual interests. There is room for students to explore individual interests. Good. Number 4, the teacher is the sole authority. The teacher is the sole authority. Number 5, the teacher interacts with students to co-create the learning experiences. The teacher interacts with students to co-create the learning experience. Number 6, it builds students' sense of responsibility. It builds students' sense of responsibility. It can be boring and theoretical. That is number 7. It can be boring and theoretical. Okay? Number 8, it helps students to remember more. It helps students to remember more. Number 9, it allows content to be covered more quickly. It allows content to be covered more quickly. It focuses on listen and repeat drills. That's number 10. It focuses on listen and repeat drills. Okay, very fast. Let us go back now to, we answered question 1. So number 2, it costs less money. Of course, I want you to compare what I'm saying with the answers you've written against each statement. Remember, our answer was supposed to be teacher-centered or learner-centered. It costs less money. That is teacher-centered approach, because it doesn't require many resources beyond the teacher. There's room for students to explore individual interest. That is learner-centered approach, because it is flexible and open. The teacher is the sole authority. That is teacher-centered approach, where the teacher is the only expert. Number 5, the teacher interacts with students to co-create the learning experience. That is learner-centered approach, where students are active contributors. Number 6, it builds students' sense of responsibility. That is learner-centered approach, where students are asked to take charge of their learning. Number 7, it can be boring and theoretical. That is teacher-centered approach, because it doesn't connect to learners' lives. Number 8, it helps students to remember more. That is learner-centered approach, because students use more of their senses and brain. Number 9, it allows content to be covered more quickly. That is teacher-centered approach, because the pace is set by the teacher and does not respond to students' needs. And lastly, it focuses on listen and repeat drills. That's a teacher-centered approach, which doesn't encourage students to express their understanding in their own words. My dear friends, did you get all those right? Very good. And if you didn't, don't worry. You get to master this as we move. This exercise has helped you to see that both a teacher-centered and learner-centered approach have different advantages and disadvantages. There are reasons why teachers might use each approach. The teacher-centered approach nowadays, however, is considered to be a traditional or old-fashioned way of teaching. As scientists have studied more about the brain and what helps people to learn, there has been a shift in education towards a learner-centered approach. It is more modern way of teaching in Rwanda's revised curriculum. It's divided to be a learner-centered approach, and therefore teachers need to know how to implement that approach in the classroom. This is very important, my friends. We are coming to the end of our lesson, and as we conclude, let us review some of the key points that we have learned today in our lesson about teacher-centered versus learner-centered pedagogy. 1. A learner-centered classroom, students have lots of opportunities to actively engage in learning activities, while in a teacher-centered classroom, students must passively listen. In a learner-centered approach, the teacher gives students room to come up with their own ideas and allows them to work according to their interest abilities. Interest abilities. Those are the key words that we have to think about. In a learner-centered classroom, there are lots of interactions. between students themselves and between the teacher and the individuals, and also with the different groups of students. Now, my dear friends, of course, as usual, I am going to end this lesson by giving you a homework assignment so that you try and apply what we have just talked about. I want you to write your own understanding of the importance of using a learner-centered approach. Let me repeat. I would like you to write your understanding of the importance of using a learner-centered approach. My dear students, our lesson today has come to an end. Student teachers, parents, thank you for your participation in this lesson. This lesson has been developed by Rwanda Education Board in collaboration with World Bank, UNICEF, Help a Child, Right to Play, and IE Rwanda. Please tune in on a radio every day for you to participate in the radio lessons for TTC. Until next time, goodbye.